Welcome to That Chronicles, where veterans get to talk about issues that are subject to veterans. It's things that we're interested in. My name is Rick Prescott.
I'm Mike Ruffner, Marine Corps.
I am Jason Hertha, Marine Corps. And if you like what you hear, please hit the like, share, subscribe button and the bell notification for the YouTube sector of this broadcast. And please check us out on Apple, Twitch, Twitter, Spotify, and pretty much hit them all, I think. And we'd like to thank our producers, 216 The Net. And behind the camera over there is Drew Cappuccino, Cassio. Is that how I say your name?
Castasio.
Okay. 5 fingers on loose tree, right?
And today we have for our very special guest, we got Laura Franz from Veterans Path to Hope. Some of the old timers in our area may know it as Transitional Living Services or TLS. And she's here to get you all educated.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's
I appreciate
great to have
it.
you here.
Thank you. I do have to tell you guys that when I think of the Marine Corps League, there's 2 things that come to mind. Your balls, the military balls, the best. You guys throw down like nobody else.
Oh.
So much fun at your military balls. And then secondly, I don't know if you guys know, but the Marine Corps League taught me to shoot during COVID.
Nice.
Yeah, Tuesday nights. Yeah.
There you go.
So you're probably familiar with
good crowd.
Bobby Higgins then?
Yes, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
you went shooting with our crew.
I did. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I did. Yeah.
Wow.
It was great. It's a good time. Yeah.
Well, they still do that twice a month. And usually I think it's the first Tuesday and the second Thursday. And so they actually compete nationally through an
I didn't know
organized
that.
system that the Marine Corps League oversees. And I forget what it's called, but was at least based out of Philadelphia, where you get your scores are submitted as a group and as individuals, and they come back with annually with awards like first place detachment and those type of things too. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
was fun.
Which county do you live in?
I live in McHenry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I went to a meeting last week and it had to deal with shooting, and it's called State Line Rifle Association. They got a website, and twice a year they go up to Wisconsin. It's like an hour north, and they go to a shooting club, and they lay it all out. It's for kids, spouses, the whole 9 yards.
You're talking about Eagle?
No, I don't know. It's not that.
You're talking about the Appleseed?
No, it's
Okay.
not that either.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just familiar with the 2 things that we did with.
Let me tell the story.
You tell the story.
All right. Anyway, State Line Rifle Association, they have a cooperation with a sportsman club up north. It's in, I think, Kenosha or Racine County or something like that. But anyway,
Yeah.
They lay out all the weapons. If you want to try something with skeet shooting, you want to shoot a shotgun, you want to shoot an AR, you want to do a revolver, they lay it all out there, and they just lay it there. And my grandson was pretty, 10 years old. He's pretty good. He was better than his brother. At least he was hitting the target. But they do it twice a year, May
Nice.
18th, and I want to say somewhere around the September 19th. And it's reasonably priced. I think it's like adults are like $15 or $25.
It's not
Kids
bad at
under a
all.
certain age, they're free.
How many rounds do you get?
There's no
Alright.
cap.
All
Ooh,
right.
right.
So that's what they
right.
do with their NRA grant money.
I'll stick my finger and be like,
Now, the reason I mention those 2 is that our organization with the Marine Corps League, we had gone up and we fired over a weekend, over a 2-day period with what's referred to as Appleseed. It's the Appleseed event, and that's where it is at that huge range right along the coast in Racine or in the Racine
not
County area.
Nice.
It's not that area.
Okay, all right,
It's straight up 45, almost an hour.
yeah, right on.
So there's options.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, nice
So
to
if you
know.
want to go out there and play and get a feel for different weapons, you can do that.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
That would be a blast.
Yeah,
literally.
it would be.
And,
Well, especially with different types of firearms and everything else, So
and with the grandkids, when I took them, all I did was sit there with my ear protection on, and I just sat back because they have a range safety person at each of the firing positions.
right, exactly.
So
Wow.
they're giving them the brief on how to handle the weapon and doing, and I'm like, let them
Let them do their thing.
right.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Do they
Yeah.
have the 203 simulator with the little paint thing that pops out and all? No.
Nope.
Oh,
Not yet.
No.
So there's an option, and
Yeah.
I don't think there's any restriction, but the State Line Rifle Association is the one that's putting that on.
Gotcha.
You can download the form and then get on the list.
Nice.
Well, with Veterans Path to Hope, you've been involved with the Veterans Path to Hope for well over 25 years, I bet. How long? How long?
Well,
has it
we've been open for 28, so
You've been open
I've
for
been there
28.
8.5 years.
You're
It'll be
8.5.
9 in July, believe it or not.
I meant to say, who was Allan
Allan Balcher? Yes.
Balcher? He's
Yeah.
the one that started
The
it
one that started it.
about 28 years ago now.
Yeah, 1996.
That's what I
Yeah.
meant to say.
Yeah.
So he started it, and
Mm-hmm.
then eventually, I don't know what happened. Did he just retire or something like that? But then you transitioned and basically took it over.
Right, right.
And you're the executive director.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what Alan did was, he ran it and grew it, and it's not an easy thing. I mean, to start, let alone can't talk today, grow a nonprofit. Many nonprofits die after 10 years. Like you have this initial burst of activity, interest, and then if you don't keep that momentum going, usually they close out.
Right,
But no,
right.
he kept it going. And then he went into semi-retirement, and there was another person before me that was promoted from within. And then after a period of time, that person bowed out, and then that's when I came in. So I've been there, like I said, about 8.5 years. It'll be 9 in July. So it's been good. It's been a good run.
Wow.
Yeah.
And every time I look up TLS or now currently Veterans Path to Hope,
Hmm.
there's always a new program.
Yes.
You're actually expanding. It's not just a matter of just retaining it.
Right.
It's actually expanding. So
Right.
you have 2 locations now, I hear.
We do.
At least two.
Actually, we have the transitional living shelter that's in Hebron, and that was kind of the main start for our agency. It was about 18 years. That's where the entire agency is in
Right.
that place, if you could imagine that. And then we expanded to McHenry because we got additional grants to help veterans. And then we moved from McHenry to our admin site now, our command center, if you will, is in Crystal Lake. And we have a 1-person office that's in Rockford. And then we have a sister agency that's in Lake County in Grays Lake that we're in the process of. We've been working together very closely for the past year and a half, and we'll be joining forces at some point in the next several months. So yeah, it's all about where are the vets and their families that need our help, and what do they need? And so when you talk about growth, what happened for us was when I started with the organization, we had 4 programs, good, solid programs. The Department of Labor Employment Program. We had the Hebron Transitional Living Program. We have the Rapid Rehousing Program. And then we had our drop-in that was in McHenry, where we have, veteran peer support, food pantry, et cetera. But what happened was different things would happen where there would be veterans that they needed help that were outside of those 4 programs. And we partner so closely with just a whole host of other organizations. I mean, you being one, the Marine Corps League is one of our partners. But when we would find a need that nobody else met, for example, there were some vets that they would go through either the New Horizons, that's a transitional living, and you can live there for up to 2 years. Most vets don't need to be there that long, but you can be there for up to 2 years. But we saw that there were some vets that came out of that program or the rapid rehousing that because of whatever things they had going on internally, they would end up homeless again. So
Wow.
there's a group of people that need more support. And so we found funding within it. Currently, it's just McHenry County, but we found funding to have our Veterans Supportive Housing Program. And vets can go into that program, and they have a case manager. You guys probably know Cindy Wallach. Wonderful. But she goes in as often as needed. There's been some that they needed her 3 times a week, believe it or not. Others, it's just a check-in once a week, maybe once every couple of weeks, just making sure that they have whatever they need, whether it's emotional support, financial, food, counseling, whatever it might be that they need to stay put. And we've had huge success with that program. So that started based on need, us seeing a need. We also started you guys see the trailers that drive around,
Mhm.
with
Right.
the Veterans Paths of Hope. They had also started because we had a veteran peer support specialist that had gone through our rapid rehousing program that said, we appreciate being put back into housing, but when you've been homeless, you don't have your stuff anymore. So you're just sitting there, with a mattress maybe, and then that's it. So we started our veteran community action team where we will hire vets that need a forgiving, kind of supportive work environment for a while. They will do pickups of donations of household, when you think about when you first went out on your own, everything you needed, that's basically what we collect. And then when veterans are placed back into housing after being homeless, either by us or the VA or other agencies, they will call us, and that VCAT team will deliver in those trailers a whole house full of furniture, 2 weeks worth of food, which is often the most important piece, honestly, and then cleaning supplies and toilet paper and sheets and pillows. And so you go from nothing to it may not be what you pick for yourself in that moment, but in that moment, you have something to sit on, you've got a bed to sleep, you have
starting
food
point.
to eat. It's just a start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So again, that was a grassroots. We just started that. And, so it's kind of like we get an idea of what's needed and then we find the funding. And that's where we've been very blessed, with grants and donations. And McHenry County in particular is a very generous county. Lots of resources for veterans, lots of support for veterans.
I went to a meeting last Friday at the library. I just wanted to see what they do besides the library. I haven't been to the library in decades. But they were talking about, the director was talking about, there was a report from Lake County that there's an increase of homeless people in the Antioch area. And of course, you got all these old ladies and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we got old." I think so. If you want to find them, go ask the cops. They'll tell you exactly where they're
Oh,
at.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they're talking about doing something for the homeless people at the library, and I get concerned because while it's a great endeavor, they don't know what they're doing.
They don't understand the needs.
Well, the thing is, once you get, that's one of the things I used to hate about the stand downs that Blanchard used to do at Camp Algonquin, and Mike Iwaniki was doing for a little bit. But the thing is, you get all these vets that show up, and of course, McHenry County, most of the vets were coming from Chicago, and they just wanted a weekend out.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have that many homeless vets in our area to really, warrant to have this program. But the thing is, they didn't have a plan of after that day what happens.
Right.
Right.
And
right.
that's huge.
The thing
Yeah.
is, you got to get your claws into them, and you can't let go until you get the next step. You can't just sit at your booth and say, "Oh, well, we'll help you with employment." Well, big deal. You don't got the employers there, and you can't do the resume there, but you got to get them the next day to start doing that stuff because they're here today, gone tomorrow.
I would think that takes a lot of dedication just for the follow-up aspect alone. That's what it sounds like is you need follow-up. It's not a matter of just reaching out and touching somebody. It's a matter of follow-up as well.
Right.
So how do you get that established? I mean, that's where you get people dedicated to constantly not only reach out, but to follow up and to make certain that everything is going right down the same path that you want it to.
Right.
What path? How do you come up with that path?
Well, and these people are pretty smart.
Yeah.
Like Pingree Station is a campground for the homeless, but they leave 4:00 in the morning and they don't come back until about 10:00 at night and when you walk around, because the Metro does very well keeping everything policed up and grass cut and everything else, you would never know until you walked in the tree line that people were living there, and they get out of there before people come around. And every homeless vet I talked to, they had each church, which one's Monday and which one's Tuesday, which for the the winter time, they know what day to go get their food from here and where you can get food from here. Some of them, they got a routine.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Well, it's a challenge. I mean, it's all about where are you going to be safe, and even the people that are living in their cars, where can you park that you're not going to get harassed? Where can you go to get food that you can eat in your car? All of those things are definitely considerations.
Interesting you say that. My daughter is going to college right now in South Carolina, right at Myrtle Beach. Mm-hmm. And she was telling me that one of the situations she ran into in her studies was that the homeless, they're not allowed to go on the beach. during the day because, well, they become a nuisance. They can get arrested for just being a nuisance. Several of them in their cars, they get arrested and they get their car towed. The problem, what she was saying, is that all of a sudden they end up in jail. They go to court, they get fined. They're already poor, and they don't have the means to pay the fines. And now it's just a traditional, transitional, constant, ongoing, perennial thing that just builds up and builds up before they finally go to jail for 6 months because they can't pay their fines and so on. She said it's just a terrible thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, how do you get around that?
Right.
Do the police in the area here understand that? Kind of just leave these vets
it's not
alone?
the police, it's the legislatures.
Uh-huh.
Legislatures create the laws that had. I had a
Right.
vet that was from Wisconsin that was living out of his car. Well, he left his car to go scrounge, and when he came back, his car was towed.
Oh,
And
wow.
I spent 3 days trying to get them to at least let him into the vehicle so he could get his personal possessions, and to include his DD 214, and they would not give it up because of the way the state law is. The other thing with the state law is that the legislatures have it where if you owe child support, and it
Right.
gets to a certain part, your license is suspended. Well, that stupid person in Chicago that turned around and had the law get passed, 101 and a half counties cannot use public transportation because there is no public transportation.
Right. Yeah.
So they created a law that automatically causes somebody to be breaking the law. It's just like what we're talking about, this gun legislation stuff. You're
Right.
creating a law for good people to be breaking the law. You do the same thing with the vehicles. And you get somebody from prison, and I know Laura has dealt with some of the people, veterans that coming out of the prison system.
Mhm.
They were there for 20 years. When you're going to jail, the last thing you're thinking about is suspending your child support.
Yeah.
So when you get out, now you owe tens of thousands of dollars. You're never going to be able to pay it back because you can't get a job because you don't have a license, you don't have a home.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the type of stuff Laura
It just
gets
simply
all
makes
the time.
matters worse.
Yeah.
Wow.
But to go back to your original comment about, how do you, the outreach part of it, it really is a mindset. And Mike, I know you know this from your experience. We don't sit and wait for people to come to us. They do come to us. They info@vphope.org, Facebook Messenger, phone calls, drop-ins, etc. But what the agency learned early on was that, the transportation issue being so germane, you have to go to where the vets are. So our staff go out, they're parked in the VAs, in the homeless drop-in centers. When we get calls about homeless vets, they go out to where they are. They bring them food. They check to make sure they really are a vet. That's often a question. And then try to connect them. So it's really about, going to where they are, forming that relationship, like that instant, it's the vets that go out to meet the vets and make that, touch base. And they may not be ready to come in. We do see that at times where they're fine for the time being, but it's about keeping that connection. So our staff they're good at that. And like I said, it's a mindset. You go to them. Don't just sit and wait for people to come to you.
And I understand that a lot of veterans, I won't say a lot, that's the implication is greater than what I'm anticipating that I want to say. But I understand that several veterans that are homeless, they want to be homeless.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want your help.
Correct.
So, and that's kind of an issue that I think most of society just doesn't understand. I don't
Right.
even understand it.
Right. Well, I remember talking to a vet that came into New Horizons a few years back, and he said, you know what? I loved the lack of responsibility, lack of bills, just being free to move around, have relationships or not. And he said the only reason that I came in is because of medical issues. He was more on the elderly side and had multiple medical issues, and it finally caught up with him. He would have stayed out there. We've also had where we have brought in veterans that were homeless for a long time, and they're really uncomfortable. Like it seems so alien to people who have not been homeless. They're excruciatingly uncomfortable being inside. And you'll see them go back to the encampments or go back to they look like they're homeless again. And people will say, well, why are they doing that? Well, you know what you know. You're comfortable with where you've been and what you know. And until you acclimate to something different where you feel safe, you know how things operate, we as human beings do that. We go back to what we know.
Well, then the other thing too is that we taught them how to be homeless. You think about it.
True.
Jason and I are both grunts. You learn how to live off the land. You learn to live in the environment that, it's not a big deal, because I always tease Sheila. I think so. If something ever happened to me, I'd be going out to the woods. I'd be going
Yep.
to the mountains. That way I don't have any responsibility, because the military's already taught them the basic survival skills.
I remember when I was younger, transitioning into civilian world and everything else, I had this confidence about myself, primarily because of that.
Mhm.
I knew how to live in a tent, and I could be happy living in a tent.
Huge. Yeah.
And so just that alone, that might be the bottom of the totem pole, but I was comfortable there. As a result of that, whatever I did, if it failed, I didn't look at it as a failure. I can always fall back on that. No problem.
Right.
Well, that
So that makes
campground
sense.
that you picked doesn't allow tents, so you're gonna
I
be
know
screwed.
that.
Yeah.
Huh. Hmm.
Well,
So,
one of the other things, and Laura's probably, I know she's familiar because we talked about it before, but I talked to one of the people that dealt with the homeless people, and the person used to go in there and trash their rooms, where they lived at. And I had to sit her down and explain to her. I said, you can't do that. I says, the reason they're taking
this is in one of the transitional homes?
well, we won't talk about where it's at. It's an incident that we talked about in the past. But basically, they had a food pantry. But when you got somebody that's homeless, even though that food pantry is right down at the other end of the building where they can get to it pretty much any time, they would take it. They would act like a squirrel, and they would put it in there. Well,
Right.
they were being chastised for it. It's like, time out. They're doing that because they don't know where the next meal is coming from.
Exactly.
As they start realizing there's some stability there, they won't be squirrely. But you can't, chastise them for.
Yeah.
This reminds me of something. When I was in law enforcement, we had task force against prostitution. And one of the things that we ran into was that once we rescued these girls, they had a very difficult time transitioning back into our world.
Right.
And what it was, first off, it was a culture. It
Mhm.
became a culture. They became enculturated of being up all night. During the day, it was sleep time. And what was crazy is that, how do you break that? They've been doing that for years. And
Right.
now you're asking them to go to work at McDonald's or wherever
Mhm.
to get a job. And then, it was just a big transitional issue. And many of them fell back into their old world, primarily because of that culture. It became their culture. It was the only thing that they knew.
Right.
Well, it
And
becomes
so that-
comfortable at the end of the day.
Well,
Right.
it is uncomfortable as what it might seem to us. For them, that was their world,
Right.
and that was their reality. And to try to change that reality to transition into something what we would refer to as normal.
Right.
That's their norm, and it was something that we couldn't understand.
Well, it has to do with their self-esteem, a lot of it, because when they're in that environment, same thing with some of the veterans they're homeless by whatever cause it is, trying to get their self-esteem where they feel confident to step back into society and raise their game.
Right.
Some of them just don't want to do it.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that, sometimes there's we continue subconscious patterns. I remember speaking about, everything I know about veterans, I've learned from veterans, right? And I remember speaking about how a lot of vets had talked to me about they move every 3 years, like without even thinking about it. And a couple of our staff, when I talked about that, said, you know what? I redecorate my home every 3 years. Like, so you don't even,
Except the Air
you don't
Force.
even, exactly.
The Air Force stays someplace for 20 years.
It's
Yeah,
already
okay.
decorated for it.
right, it's decorated for it. Yeah. But it's just like continuing some of those patterns, or, your closet, the hangers are exactly 1 inch apart from each other. You don't even realize you're doing it. It's just
My
these
wife's not
patterns
listening.
persist.
Color coordinated.
I don't care about any of that stuff. As soon as I got out, I'm like, clothes everywhere. I don't give a shit. But yeah, on a subconscious level, I agree. And for example, drinking, especially in the grunts, was a huge part of the culture. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I'm thinking the way I was drinking was actually normal.
Right.
And that's how I thought everybody would drink. And then after a period of time, I'm like, no, it's definitely not normal where someone could drink like a half a beer, put it down, and this like walk away from it. So yeah, you are unconsciously conditioning yourself for a certain way of living, it becomes accustomed to you and becomes normal and comfortable. But even though it's somewhat comfortable, it is uncomfortable at the same time because by default, you're going to start creating a lot of chaos in your life. So,
Sure.
like we've developed our brain to live like that, and then learning a new skill, it's just basically rewiring your brain to learn another one. But the thing is that you have to be willing to want to do that. So like if you're going from homeless to not, yeah, of course it's going to be weird because it's something foreign that your mind is learning. So it's going to be uncomfortable. And if people can just accept the fact that when you learn a new skill, like getting back into everyday society, it's going to be a little uncomfortable at first, but that's okay. And there has to be a bit of a maturing process too, because, you go in the military is your way of living. And then when you get out, like, how do you establish normal relationships with people and all that stuff? And it's like, well, you may not agree with it sometimes or whatever, but you got to play the game, because if you don't, well, then you are in for a very rude awakening to where, it's unfortunate you got, veteran suicide that happens because they think that's easier way. But like, no, you're also hurting others that when you take your own life, you're going to be hurting other people too that care about you. And you don't even realize it because, it's you're in that emotional turmoil. So
I know for me, getting out of the military, it took me probably on one side of my clock says about 2.5, 3 years. But then another side of it says about 7 years before I finally felt comfortable, at least accepting the fact that I was now in a civilian world, because I was regimented. And when I came home, I did do my closet the same way I did before, to roll my socks exactly the same way I did before and everything else. Still ran PT every day, those type of things. It was crazy. But, it took me a while, and I was uncomfortable if I didn't do those things.
Right.
So, but I think for me, the biggest thing was the relationships that I try to reestablish. And you just mentioned that really well, is all of a sudden I was, 26 years old and trying to relate to people my age that never had military experience and so forth. I could not relate to them. They could not relate to me. And of course, this is after the Vietnam era sort of thing. So as far as they were concerned, I was just a trained killer. I went, hey man, I was just more T.
They would remind them all the time.
well, at least you're honest.
But the biggie is though is that they were still talking about smoking dope and going down to the beach with the girlfriend in the car and watching submarine races. This is their world.
Right.
And I went, you guys have any idea what's going on around you?
Right. No.
And I lost my temper with some of these folks when they didn't even know about, the 444 days that some of my friends stood in an embassy in Iran, and they had no idea that was even, what happened? What? And I lost it. I just couldn't understand. That's what my big thing was. Going to college, that sort of thing, getting into debates and so forth in classes. And I couldn't understand how ignorant these guys were. Don't you know what's going on around you? So it took me a while before I finally fell into, finally getting a job and falling into a different routine sort of thing, a different level of understanding. But that was a big transition. I understand why some people can really feel alienated when they come back into the civilian world.
Yeah.
Particularly whatever they had in their experience.
Right. And I will say that in my experience, there's no time limit. Like you mentioned, 3 years, 7 years.
Right.
We in the past had a board member that he'd been out of the military for, at least 25 years, and he was working at a really large company. And he said, I still get so upset over the lack, like the level of selfishness of people. Like
Right.
He goes, I'm used to there being a mission. We all have our assigned roles and tasks to complete. He goes, but oftentimes I feel like I'm the only one. And it was causing him so much angst that he went into counseling because it was keeping him up at night, just that inherent angst. And I get that. So,
You have this sense of keep your eye on the ball.
mhm.
And other people, due to their personal self-interests, they go off in a different direction and they lose focus. That's our biggest frustration, I think.
Right.
Keep your eye on the ball, accomplish the mission,
Yeah.
and then move on to the next.
Right. I want to put a plug in here right now
Sure.
because we have two counselors at Veterans Path to Hope
That's
that are
what I wanted to go to
outstanding.
next.
Thank you. Yeah, just and all the services are free that we offer. I want to say that as well. And so we have Kevin Russell, he's an LCPC, has been
What's
doing
an LCPC?
licensed clinical professional counselor. That's
Thank you.
and he's been doing counseling with veterans for, I'd say, over 20 years. It's been a really long time. Very, very good. He's seen some first responders also that have said life-changing working with him. And then our very own Sean Merchant, Navy, but still. He was a housing case manager with us for over 10 years, got his master's in counseling, and he's been providing services. So he will see, it's not only the veteran, but their spouses, their children, their
Are they
significant
actually
others.
working for Veterans Path, or are they
Correct.
working for a VA?
No,
or
they're
represent-
working for us. So there is
Awesome.
there's no VA connection, which is nice. There's the conversations stay in-house. There's no reporting to the VA. There's no record anywhere. It's just, you need help figuring out something, whether it's a one-time thing or you need a little bit more time. We've got 2 individuals currently that are ready and waiting, so come on in.
So what exactly do they do? I mean, in a broader brush, you just mentioned counseling.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm sure that they do more than simply counseling. They're looking at finances. Are they doing that? Are they looking at stress management? Are they looking at finding employment? Or in the general sense, what do they do?
These 2 guys are doing therapy and counseling.
That's it.
That is
Okay.
what they do. Yeah,
That's their
they're
specialty.
looking at, how are the ways that you think? What are the patterns that you're experiencing in your life with what you're doing, how you're thinking? How does it affect your emotions and the ways that you're relating to other people around
Fantastic.
you? And then pulling that apart and, looking at thinking errors, looking at patterns that are just habitual that maybe you haven't thought of other options for. And again, not just the veteran, but their children, their significant others as well. Family members, parents of. Yeah, it's a wonderful service.
So you're providing that service not only to the veteran, but the veteran family,
Correct.
et cetera.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, your veterans that work there,
Mhm.
are they all actively in other veterans organizations as a way to reach out to others?
Many of them are. Many of them are commanders of either American Legions or VFWs, or they're vice. They're involved kind of across the board, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think that's important because
Mhm.
we're dealing with a project in Woodstock, and you can't just sit inside of a building, just like you can't sit inside a building. They have to get outside the lines and in order to mix it up and give people's awareness.
Right.
So tell us about the Lake County. Is that like a merger coming up? Or?
Yeah, it's kind of a fun story. Back when we were in everything was at New Horizons in Hebron, the health departments of McHenry County and Lake County decided to go for a SAMHSA grant, and it's a substance abuse and mental health, federal grant.
3-year grant.
Yeah, 5-year grant. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what the grant did was it said each of the counties, these 2, people that came forward, they were going to open a drop-in center, and it was going to offer peer support services by veterans. So veterans that would become certified peer support specialists. So for 5 years, the 2 organizations worked together in their drop-in centers, the one that's in Grays Lake, and then we had ours in McHenry. And then at the end of the grant, the one in Lake County became their own 501c3 and a Lake County Veterans and Family Services Foundation. And ours became, it stayed the same. It's a drop-in center, that again provides peer support. And I will comment that what you were listing is, do they need financial, literacy? Do they need, housing, counseling, whatever? That is what the peer support specialists do. It's like talking with every single veteran and or family member. Again, this is for family members too. Where are you stuck? What is it that you need to get past this point where you're stuck? And
Right.
again, it could be a one-time drop-in, or it could be that we're going to be walking beside somebody while they're in recovery, whatever it might be, until they get to the point where they don't need that anymore and they're free to go, but also free to come back. So anyway, so the 2 agencies operated separately for about 10 years. And then I went out to visit, it was about almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and met with Paul Baffico, who was the founder, there, and said to him, what are you thinking? And he was getting close to retirement. So we worked together for about a year, where I would go out every week and meet with the staff and, learn their operations. And it was kind of amazing how, both of us had very, very similar philosophies. Like for the drop-in center, all veterans are welcome. Doesn't matter your discharge status. The VA has certain conditions. We don't have conditions. If you're a veteran and or family member and you need a hand up, come see us. They operate the same way. And so he, as you guys know, he took a fall in September that he ended up passing away within a week after that fall. And so then I was on the board, and the board said, can you take this from here? And so I've been, if you notice, my signature line has both logos, both organizations, and we've been just knitting together over the past year, which
Wow.
has not been hard to do at all. Yeah, it's a delightful. They have they do different events every month that are just awareness events. They work closely with NERCO out of Waukegan, which is a veteran-run organization that deals with substance abuse and recovery and et cetera. So it's almost like a three-way. It's VPH and then Lake County and then this NERCO organization. Wonderful organizations. So we're working closely and more closely together, and it's been a really good experience, I think, for all. Oh, I started to say they run a Cup of Joe. They run 5 different coffee groups for veterans, and out in the community.
Mhm.
And every week there's a schedule posted, and they have a lot of fun. I mean, it's some of the same people have been coming for many years, similar to the groups that we run at VPH. It's you get that following and the connections are made, and you come for that. The coffee may be bad or maybe not, but the company's good. So
So where do you conduct these at different
different-
coffee locations or at your facilities?
For the Lake County, it's at different small. They like if they can find veteran-owned coffee shops, like
Right.
small business coffee shops. That's what they're looking for. So they're trying to support through that, their effort. And the agency pays for the coffee. So the veterans go, they have coffee and a treat, and it's they don't have to worry about paying if they don't.
And you get a large turnout at these events?
It depends on the group and the day. It could be
Right.
that it's on one day, it might be just 3 that show up with the peer support specialist, either Stephanie or Kevin. Other times there might be as many as 10. So
How
it
do you
just
get the word out
depends.
to those particular individuals? Let's say if they're homeless or something and he's drop in. How do you get the word out to those guys?
It's the same time and place every week.
Ah,
Yeah.
so
So,
it's
if you've been there
consistent
once,
pattern.
you're going to come back. Yeah.
Right.
It's a very predictable pattern.
Oh, that's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's a really, it's fun to talk with the peer supports out there when they come back, and they're kind of, just energized by the conversation, the camaraderie, just seeing these guys, mostly guys, but, seeing these guys connect with each other and want to come together, across all different branches, all different ages. I mean, it's just, different for each group. It's pretty neat.
So what's interesting is it doesn't sound like the Veterans Path is simply a drop-in center.
Correct.
You have counseling services. You have reach-out programs.
Yes.
You go out and have coffee with these folks at different
Mhm.
locations. You go out and meet them.
Right.
And you have transitional centers to assist them in transitioning from the streets, if necessary, into civilian life and everything else.
Right.
Do you also do resumes? Do you help them find jobs?
Yeah, so we have one of the Department of Labor. It's the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, and that's where we used to work. So that's a program, again, outreach based, where the staff members go out and meet homeless veterans where they are and work with them to get employment, and very challenging to do. So they're usually, most of our programs, or I say all of our programs, even the outdoors program, when the veteran comes in. As the staff are building a relationship and getting to know them, they're seeing what else is there that they may need. So obviously, homeless vets that need employment probably also need housing, or so they're going to coordinate them with our housing program. They may need food, so we're going to be connecting them with our food pantry, bringing them food where they are. So it's there's 8 different programs that we offer, and all of them are tied together. It's really like, what does this person need? It's a very individually based kind of assessment. And if we don't offer it, we have, again, all these different partnerships of, we don't do that, but we know somebody who does. And then we do a soft handoff to the other organization or agency.
How large of a staff do you have?
We have, let's see, right now there are 58 employees, about half full-time and half part-time. And then a number of volunteers, lots of volunteers. We're blessed that way.
About how many volunteers would you say?
At any given time, there's about 25 regular volunteers, and then we have people that will come in and do one event or another event, so there's some in and out depending on people's time and ability.
So how would you compare this to when you first started, Laura?
Well, we've doubled in size. We offered 4 programs when I started. We offer 8 plus now. So we've expanded. We're not just in Lake and McHenry, which is pretty much where we were when I started. We're in the Rockford area, where there's lots of vets in need in the Rockford area. So we're all across northern Illinois, a little bit into Kenosha, depending on the service. So
Right on.
yeah.
So 2 questions here. Drew Casio wants to know what the spirit pool is, and then also if you could tell us about the Lead Farms Live event too.
Well, we have a whole, one of the things that we determined early on was that not enough veterans know about us. And so part of our effort to do an event as often as we can is not only fundraising, but also trying to get the word out that, hey, we're here. If you're not a vet, you probably know a vet that may use our services. So we started the Spirit Poll during COVID, actually. It was an online event. It was a Facebook Live event where we had different local manufacturers that would give us, bottles of whatever. And then we would have the Facebook Live where they would talk about how to use the product, different drinks you could mix, and then sell the products online. And so after COVID, not that it's ever really over, but you know what I mean? After COVID officially was kind of done and we could go out again, we started to hold it in different sites. And it's just gotten a little bit bigger and more fun every year. And now this year we're holding it in the largest venue we've had, which is the VFW in McHenry, 4,600. So that is going to be on March 9th. We have a lot of different distillers there. We're really excited. It's a really, really fun event. So I hope people will come out for this. We also have our wild game dinner. I don't know if you guys have ever been to that. That's April 20th. It's for our outdoors program. And that's a lot of fun. And then the Live is September 7th, and that's a really fun event. It's
I was just talking to Sean Henning
yes,
the other day
exactly, yeah,
about that, and he was
Yeah.
telling me September 7th is quite the event that he's planning.
Oh,
Different bands.
okay,
I
Yeah.
think Semperfi Chef's going to be
Yeah,
there.
one guy, Semperfi Chef, he's doing barbecue, so he'll be over there too.
That's you.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is.
Oh,
Yeah,
great. That's great. Yeah,
and several
a
others. He
fun
mentioned
event.
a lot of veteran food trucks and things like that. He usually gets the veterans out there and everything else, and he just loves the Veterans Path to Hope. He just he told me the other day, he goes, "That's my baby right there." So,
Well, we
enjoy it.
appreciate it. They've been amazing support for us. And that event, too, is a blast. It's like you're out in the middle of the cornfields, like literally. They cut them down so that there's the band space. It's usually fantastic weather. The food is good. The music is fantastic. 3 to 4 different bands. Just a very chill event. There's raffle baskets, and it's just fun. Just a really, kind of chill vibe there. I like that
That's
event
awesome.
a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And he told me that he raises several thousand.
He does.
So he's he's very, very proud of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He should be. It's I can never explain to people enough how much of a difference that these fundraising events, that people put on, these third-party events for us. And my clearest example is this: the Department of Labor program that I was talking about, the homeless veterans, where we help homeless veterans get employment. We get a grant for $300,000, never more. That's it. It's $375,000 to deliver that program. So we have to raise $75,000 so that we can keep offering that program. So people will say, why do you do so much of this fundraising? Why? Well, because we believe this is mission centric. This is part of our mission, is to be helping veterans in need, especially homeless veterans, but veterans and their families outside of that. And it takes dollars. It just does, to be able to pay the gas for the cars as people are driving out there, to pay the staff members that are there, most of them veterans. And if they're not veterans, they're one-off. They deserve to earn a living too, as they're offering these services, from their hearts and their talents. So we need it to be able to do what we do.
So if folks wanted to donate to help out the Veterans Path to Hope, how do they go about that?
Well, I want to, of course, invite them to our events. Like I said, the Spirit
Super.
Pull, that's a great way because you have
So
fun
date,
and
time,
you're
locations
donating.
again?
Yeah, so Spirit Pull is March 9th, 5 o'clock, I believe, and it's at the VFW in McHenry. And then I always have to put in a plug for our gala, which gets more and more fun every year. Not quite as wild as the Marine Corps, military ball, but it is a good time. This year it's October 18th, so people can put that on their calendars and plan to attend. But yeah, and there's also, of course, like most, we have our website that has a donation page on it. Sometimes people drop in and leave us checks. That's always welcome, or cash. So lots of ways to donate.
So that's the veteranspathtohope.org, I think it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
Awesome.
that's it.
/donation. I asked.
Oh,
Perfect.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're on it.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
And then where's the Lead Farms live at?
Well, that is at their the farm,
Right.
The Hennings farm, and I don't have that address in front of me.
Gotcha.
But
Well, I know it's in
it's-
Huntley, so.
yeah, it's in Huntley, exactly. Yeah, and that'll be. All of our events are on Facebook and on our webpage, so the addresses are there, the times, everything that you need to know is posted on there. We start planning early, so.
Like the day after?
Yeah, well, literally. Yeah, you kind of have to do that. And it's like, all right, this was a blast. How do we make it even more fun for next year? So it's good stuff.
Yeah, we usually turn around and assess what didn't work.
Yes,
Do we want to fix it or do we want to dump it?
right. Yeah, we also have a couple of Jeep runs. You guys have probably seen some of those on Facebook. Yeah, those are fun. Chris Acker out of Lake County runs, helps coordinate those for us. And those get bigger and bigger every year. Those are really fun. So the Jeep community is just a fun community and very pro-veteran. So we appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm trying to find the Lead Farm on online. They don't have a website. They're only on Facebook.
That
But,
makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah,
I think a lot of organizations are kind of going away from actually doing a website, and they're using the Facebook because it's easier for them.
You can reach
Right.
people. Yeah, reach more people.
well, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Who do we have on here? We
Cat.
Cat. That's what it was. We
Oh,
had
that's
Cat on
right.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From our HVRP program.
Has she reached
Yeah.
out to you guys since she moved to Utah?
We have heard from her and she's doing well. Yeah. I
Yeah,
was glad
that's
to
great.
hear. Yeah. I
Yeah.
forgot about that. Yeah, that was
It
last
was
year.
kind
I
of,
think.
it was kind of a shocker to find out they were getting divorced. I was like, dang.
So
I know.
she's living out in Utah?
Yeah.
Is it Utah?
I think so. Yeah.
Like, who lives in Utah?
Her sister.
Yeah, but I'm wondering who is that even part of the states anymore? Utah.
I guess so.
Like, there's what's
You've
what's
had
out
a
there?
sheltered life being in Canada. How much you've forgotten by going to Canada. The only
like a-
Marine I know that went to Canada after the Corps.
Isn't there like a big Mormon
Not-
population over there?
I'll never forget my brother calling me. It was during Gulf War I. They were all building up the forces in Saudi Arabia. And he calls me and goes, I got activated. Oh, I got to go. And he's in his 40s. He goes, what are you going to do? I said, what do you mean, what am I going to do? I'm living in Canada. Why do you think I moved here? He goes, you little draft dodger. Story of my life.
Now
So-
you got it once, but you'll meet him and you'll hear it many times. Matter of fact, one time he was telling a story when we did Red Shirt Friday, and I said, I bet you heard this story a million times. She goes, 2 million.
So you've been with this organization for 8 years.
Yeah, almost 9.
I remember when you were in McHenry,
Mm-hmm.
along 120.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you actually had, I remember I came over to visit one time, and you had a convoy of vehicles pulling through the parking lot, and you were handing out food
Yes.
to veterans.
Yeah. That is our our monthly food truck. And we've continued that. Our current parking lot isn't friendly to this, so we use a church that's like within a quarter mile down the street.
Right on.
But that is how it works.
So you still
veterans
do that?
pull up. Oh yeah, veterans pull up. They have food in boxes and bags loaded right into their back seats or their trunks. And we have it's posted, like our next one, March 21. So that's the next one, April 18th. So every month on the regular. So we have that drive-through food pantry, and then we have the on-site food pantry, where there's hygiene supplies also, pet supplies.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, lots of
Wow.
resources. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's open for any vet
Yes.
and their families and so forth.
Correct. Yeah. And I'm really encouraging people right now to come in and utilize these resources. Like so many different groups do drives for us and help us keep that stocked. And with how tight money is right now, it's, if you can come in and get a big bag of dog food that would normally cost $30 from us, you've got $30 to buy your grandchild a gift that maybe you didn't have, or pay for a medication that you might not have had money for.
Exactly.
So we really encourage people. There's no shame. I mean, it's, we're here, many of the people that work for us have needed help and have used our assistance. And so they can speak firsthand about
I
it.
forget who mentioned it to me one time, not long ago, but within the last year or so. They said, hey, look, Veterans Path could use some kitchenware.
Mm-hmm.
So
Always.
I got on my little Facebook bandwagon in my neighborhood, Legend Lakes Estates. And I said, look, Veterans Path to Hope, looking for this. Get your stuff together. Send me a message, an instant messenger, whatever, and let me know if I can come over. And I picked up like 100 items. And I was thinking at the time, they're going to give me all their junk. Not one item was a piece of junk. I have toasters that were still in the box. People were given stuff. They bought it. And
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what they were giving us.
Yeah.
So I brought that over. And I went over to a podiatrist. That's a foot doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it would be.
I just wanted to make sure. 'Cause I didn't want to, because I also saw a colonoscopy guy who would run at the same time. So
Not
anyway.
to be confused.
TMI, buddy. TMI.
Anyway.
I don't want to hear about your enema story.
Right.
And they
The
found my
foot
keys,
and
by the
the-
way.
Yeah, I'll leave that.
So anyhow, I went there and I said, what are you going to do with all those shoes? What, are these orthopedic shoes? And he says, yeah, they are. And he had like 40 or 50 pair.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what are you doing with those? He goes, well, people now get them online. I'm trying to offload these. I said, I have just a place for it.
Yeah.
So I collected them up, brought them over to the Veterans Path,
Yeah.
gave them to you guys. And I'm sure they got transitioned out somewhere.
I was going to say, I'm sure they're gone by now.
Yeah.
Along with that big donation of household stuff, all gone.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
that
yeah.
goes out fast.
Do you need stuff still now?
Always.
I mean, always,
Yeah,
really?
Always. Mm-hmm.
Furniture? Do you also need furniture?
Almost always. Yeah. Sometimes the supply exceeds the demand because we have limited storage space.
Right.
But we'll just ask people to hold their items temporarily until we're able to come pick them up, given space.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's how that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can always use kitchen stuff. You can
Mhm.
always use, so
Cleaning supplies, paper products. There's always, you think about what you use in your day-to-day life. That's what we're giving to people. The
right,
stuff they need in their day-to-day life.
right.
Yeah.
And there's no means test for anybody, no matter how much money they make, can show up.
They can, although they don't. I mean, people who have means generally are not
Yeah.
coming in. So yeah, we're not asking people for their, bank accounts or to prove that they need. No, if you say you need it, we're trusting that you need it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
that's pretty awesome.
It is.
That's pretty awesome. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm certain that you're reaching out and you're touching other people and
Right.
they're coming to you.
Right.
So there's another one of those follow-ups.
Right.
With these
Exactly.
type of programs.
Well, and the thing I always say about veterans is that, I've worked with a lot of different populations in my career, and this is the first population that I swear 3 out of every 5 that we help, once they're over that hump or that barrier, past that barrier, they're turning around and saying, okay, now how can I help? How can I help the next guy? They want to give back. And I haven't seen that with any other population that I've worked with. It's something that makes veterans just an amazing group to work with.
The age group that you're servicing out there, like I'm thinking, okay, the Vietnam veterans are getting pretty old. They're hitting their 70s or stuff like this, or they're pushing 80. Are you now finding that there are younger veterans now in need, such as Gulf War veterans, Gulf War I,
Oh, yeah.
Gulf War II, et cetera?
Yeah, definitely. The youngest person that served that was out at New Horizons, I'm assuming you're talking about them specifically. We had a 20-year-old out there, believe it or not, and we've had someone that was 92. So we've had the whole age range there. We're still doing our Wednesday night dinners. We just moved this week to Prairie View because we got so many people in that weren't, 30 people in our office is big, but it's not that big. So they decided to move to another spot. Same
Right.
thing there. It's open to all ages, and that's who shows up. All ages of veterans show up for that. It's
Wow.
wonderful. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what kind of organizations are actually giving you guys support?
Well, we have Daughters of the American Revolution, obviously Marine
Wow.
Corps League, many VFWs, many American Legions. The VACs, of course, we coordinate with all the VACs and they support the veterans that we're working with. Catholic Charities, like you name it, the community foundations, family foundations. It's like we reach out to everyone. Police departments, everyone gives. Everyone contributes in one way or another.
So you have a telephone number there that people can call?
Yes. 815-321-4673.
Once again?
815-321-4673.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
On the screen.
Perfect.
Oh, there it is.
Perfect. Yeah. And info at
What would we do without
vphorp.org.
Right.
I don't know what we would do without Drew. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Drew.
One-handed clap. Can you hear that?
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah.
It was
Much
awesome.
appreciated.
Thing to have you here today. It really was. And thank you for coming. I know you're very busy being the executive director and all, but to have you here is pretty cool.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, once again, folks, I want to say thank you for our listeners for tuning in to Roger That Chronicles. If you will, pass the word. Let everybody know, family members, your fellow veterans, everyone on the planet. Let them know about this program because obviously with a show like this, with such wonderful guests, now you see what we do. We've been doing this for over a year now, and it's time for you to pass the word. Support us and be a part of the program. And feel free to call in. Click that live button so that when we go on air, you get a notification that we're on air. So thank you so much.
Alrighty. And if you like what you hear and also like what you see, hit the bell notification, the subscribe button, and the like button to help us out on YouTube with the algorithm. And check us out on Apple, Twitch, Twitter, Spotify. And we want to thank our producer, 216 The Net, our producers. One of them in the hot seat over there, Drew Cassio. Did I say that right?
Close enough.
Okay, close enough. I'll say Drew. That's good enough.
People call me cappuccino for a reason.
Cappuccino.
And if you want to be a sponsor, just contact 216 The Net. And for you veterans out there, it's time to come home. Find yourself with American Legion, VFW, Marine Corps League, Navy League, Fleet Reserve Association, AMVETS. There's a bunch of different veterans. Find one that you feel comfortable with and hang out with them, and you'll learn some more about how you can move on with your life, but you get the networking part done, and things are always going to be good. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. See you next time.
Yep.